with progress. Welcome to Souq News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souq News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souq News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souq News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souq News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
You know you have something to offer to the world even if you think you don't. My advice to you today is that you stay with us and let us open your eyes to those areas to which you can provide solution and even make money out of it. I'm Blessing Aiche. Welcome to Early Exchange. Femi Ayodele is here with me, and together we're treating you to a nice time, helping you start your day and your way also to great profit in your business and of course in your life. Good morning, Femi.
Good morning. How are you today?
I'm good. I feel happy that indeed, finally, I blocked that camera
Oh.
that was enabling you to twin with me.
Don't worry. I think it's a call for me to find a way to re-strategize.
You want to re-strategize?
I'm going to plan a coup, and I won't carry you along.
I will be monitoring spirit around you to know what you're planning.
All right. Good morning. Glad to have you join us. Today is a special day dedicated for books. You heard me. Today is World Book Day, and we'll be talking about that. The essence of creating a special day like this is to encourage reading and to celebrate authors. So whoever you are, local authors, international, we celebrate you on a day like this. We'll be having a discussion in that regard. Don't forget you can be part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to join us on our social media platform, on our YouTube page, to share your view as regards reading culture globally. We're going to talk about that. Now let's start the program properly with news update. We'll switch over to our newsroom, where Lavinia is standing by to take us around the world. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to the news update on Souq News. I am Lavina Emma. Nigeria's President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has taken significant steps to enhance the efficiency and competitiveness of Nigeria's oil and gas industry by signing several executive orders. These orders, aimed at streamlining operations and strengthening the sector, include the introduction of fiscal incentives for non-associated midstream and deepwater developments. Additionally, the contracting process will be streamlined to reduce the cycle to 6 months, promoting timely project execution. This initiative reflects government's commitment to attracting investments, leveraging the nation's resources, and fostering economic diversification for the benefits of all Nigerians. The directives developed with key stakeholders will be gazetted and implemented within a specified time frame, ensuring effective execution and impact. Away from Nigeria, following a meeting with his counterparts, Niger's Armed Forces Chief Musa Salau Bamu says the junta-led nations of Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali have reached an agreement to establish a joint force aimed at addressing security threats across their territories. This decision marks a step in the ongoing alignment among the 3 neighboring West African countries, which is plagued by insurgency in the central Sahel region, following their severance of military ties with long-standing allies like France and the formation of the Alliance of Sahel States. He noted that the new task force will become operational promptly to confront security challenges, although specifics regarding its size and scope were not provided. The escalating violence in the region, affected by the decade-long conflict with Islamist groups affiliated with Al-Qaeda and Islamic State, has intensified since military takeovers in the 3 countries between 2020 and 2023. And now Egypt has clinched an expanded $8 billion deal with the International Monetary Fund, following a sharp devaluation of its currency and a 600 basis points rate hike by the central bank in efforts to stabilize the economy. Additionally, Egypt will receive a $1.2 billion loan for environmental sustainability, bringing its total from the IMF to over $9 billion. The currency plunged to beyond 50 Egyptian pounds to the dollar from about 30.85 pounds, prompting the move towards a more flexible exchange rate, a crucial demand of the IMF. Despite doubts to overcome commitments, structural reforms, including reducing state and military economic interests, the central bank aims to tame inflation through the rate hike, targeting market-driven exchange rates while securing sufficient foreign exchange liquidity. And to the Middle East, Saudi Aramco and Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, ADNOC, are engaging in discussions to invest in U.S. liquefied natural gas projects, intensifying competition with oil majors and regional rival Qatar in the thriving gas markets, with global demand for LNG anticipated to surge by 50% by 2030. The Gulf oil giants seek to leverage their fossil fuel reserves. Saudi Aramco is exploring investment in Phase 2 of Sempra Infrastructure's Port Arthur LNG project in Texas, while ADNOC is in talks with Next Decade for offtake from a proposed 4th processing unit at its Rio Grande LNG export facility. Amid regulatory pressures and financial hurdles faced by the U.S. LNG project developers, the involvement of the Gulf oil giants signals their strategic shift towards LNG aimed at heightening global demand and competition. And finally, Tesla has announced its departure from Australia's main auto lobby. The Federal Chamber of Automotive Industries, FCAI, citing the group's dissemination of misleading information regarding proposed fuel efficiency standards and their impact on car prices. Tesla expressed concerns over FCAI's involvement in coordinating price changes among competitor brands in response to environmental regulations and has requested an investigation by Australia's competition regulator. The body representing major car brands has yet to respond, even Australia plans to implement fuel efficiency standards to limit carbon emissions from new vehicles sold starting next year, potentially boosting EV adoption. And with that, we call it a wrap on the news update. I am Lavina Emma. Early Exchange continues with Blessing and Femi. Thanks for watching.
All right, thank you, Lovina, for taking us around the world with the news update. And now we'll go on a short break. We'll be right back shortly to kick off our major story and conversation for today. Stay with us.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souq News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souq News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souq News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souq News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souq News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Yinka Babalola.
My name is Ijoma Pelokoro.
My name is Joshua Hassan.
I am Rotarian or Mosunde Lawson.
It's Ife Yunwarita Ejeze. My friends call me Ife.
My name is Rotarian Lola Dare.
I'm inviting you to keep watching Souq News. It's the right station to tune to.
I like Souq News. Souq News is good.
I want to charge you all to listen to Souq News, watch the news.
You can have unlimited news, first time.
Find Souq News. Be with Souq News. Never switch off. You are better for it. Souq News is the real thing.
Listen to their coverage and you'll be glad you did.
Turn to your YouTube, turn to your Instagram, turn to all your digital channels and look for Souq News.
Keep watching.
Keep watching.
Please, guys, keep watching
Souq News.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Mase Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles. symbols of strength and dignity. Her historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souq Enlightenment. In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souq News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souq News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souq News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souq News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souq News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, glad to know you're still there with us. Today is World Book Day, a concept created by UNESCO in 1995 to encourage reading, to celebrate authors, and also to ensure that reading becomes a global culture. There's this general perception that the best way to hide information from a black man is to put it in a book. Is that still the situation now? Let's find out from Sam Horuje, who joins us in the studio this morning. Glad to have you join us this morning.
Good morning, Femi. My pleasure to be here.
Good morning, sir. Welcome
Good morning,
to the show.
Blessing. Thank you.
All right, from my introduction, I would love to start that way. Today is World Book Day, as provided by UNESCO to celebrate books and also encourage reading. But let's start with this controversial misconception or conception, whichever side you belong to, that the best way to hide information from a black man is to put it in a book.
Well, I don't think is a misconception. The literacy level here, and particularly in terms of reading, is very low when you compare to some other claim. Today's celebration actually is targeting children to involve a culture of reading from that early stage. So we have 2 World Book Day. Another one is coming up in April 23rd. That one take a global view about reading and intellectual property to highlight some of the impact that when you develop intellectual property, should be able to rewarded for that. But today, essentially, particularly in the UK and Ireland, where the culture has stood for a very long time, is to get children at early age to have interest, reading with pleasure, so they can stimulate their cognitive development. Unlike in our climb, and the statement you made is of the truth, even adults, if you see the level of the reading culture is so appalling. But in other crime, even in the UK, they are very worried that in spite of their literacy level, which stands at over 47.4%, they are encouraging more people to read, the children. And one of the greatest highlights, particularly in the UK, some kind of vouchers are given out to children so that they can procure a book. I'm not too sure if that kind of ceremony, maybe apart from a few civil society group, charity group, that will go to some schools to celebrate the day. So the danger is that if you don't develop your intellectual capacity through reading, then the next generation, particularly in this area, will have some problem. So today highlights the beauty of starting to read and see reading as a pleasurable exercise, which will improve on your cognitive development. Another highlight of today is that read your way, which is the theme of this year, which means that everybody has a choice to make decision of what kind of literature, what kind of reading, what kind of fiction, what kind of real serious items that you choose to read. That is very key. Make choices, particularly at any early age. And research has shown that children who develop reading at early stage, their cognitive development is faster than those who don't read at early stage. I think that's just the best background that one can make on that issue.
All right. According to UNESCO Institute for Statistics, the report says that in 2017, more than one half of children and adolescents are not learning worldwide, and it highlighted over 70 million girls and 85 million boys globally may not achieve minimum reading proficiency levels by the end of primary education. Now, reading your way for children, what can encourage that? What is it that you think has discouraged the reading culture, particularly for children?
I think it's a global one. When you look at the statistics that you just rolled out, I think India represents a bigger fraction of that research. But how do we encourage reading, if that is a question?
Yes.
What the UK government and Ireland is doing, particularly on these days, to provide voucher. What it means, children are given certain amount of money, maybe about £1.50 shillings or whatever it is, which if you convert it to our local currency, maybe about 1,500, is given on these days for children to walk into a bookshop and get a book.
That's on a day like this?
Yeah, on a day like this, and it's sustained over a period of time. So that's improve in terms of the proficiency, because literacy, particularly reading and writing, is very critical in terms of your developmental psychology over a period of time. So in our climb, at least we should highlight it in our environment, that the government must find a way to invest more in education and provide incentive, particularly at the early child education stage. If you look at the percentage which is being debated, between 10.5 million to 15 million, depending who is bringing out the statistics, we have out-of-school children, and that's a major challenge in terms of development. So even those ones out of school don't even have access to reading. So the government must put more investment in that area. Libraries are no longer fashionable in our climate, and you visit a city like Abuja, there's no national library. The ones that we have just behind us here is dead. So, and those are challenges. So people should encourage to read. In my own time, we spend some of our pocket money in buying books on our own. We're not even driven by parents, because that was a culture that you must read to develop yourself. So we need to encourage that. Then those of us who have opportunity of higher education must equally try to see how we can encourage our children, our world, and people in our community. We can donate books and encourage. We can even teach people how to read and write. That will help to stimulate their learning over a period of time.
Now, one of the highlights for today is reading with pleasure, you know, most importantly for children. Unlike when we were growing up, we were reading, you know, based on the fact that the instruction came from our parents or from our teachers. And now, how strategic it is now to deploy the issue of pleasure or make it pleasurable for children. How strategic will that be, and what will be the impact now if that is the
If you look at the catchphrase, read your way, it means that you have the choice and you make a decision of what you like to read. That will serve as an impetus, an encouragement, because the choices are made by you, unlike a guided reading culture where you are asked to read specific type of fiction, literature, and all that. But now, as a child, you have a gift, a cash gift. Make your decision, what do you really like to read? So that interest will bring about capacity and love to read. I think that's is very key in terms of development for children. You are making choices, unlike where you are teleguided on what to read and what not to read. So the choice from that early childhood,
and even the atmosphere for
the environment for reading, and you have libraries in other crimes. So we must encourage library, and this value change that has come, that even those who had education, what kind of money do they have at the end of going to school? Those are wrong culture, where the value is shifting from scholarship, literacy, and your mental capacity to think. Now people just think that it's just sufficient once you have some money in your back pocket. Life has become so beautiful. So, but we need to encourage that. And I think that's one of the challenges we equally have, because people are not really reading to open up their mind to new issues. Then people can easily be recruited into all kinds of criminality in this environment.
Still on reading for fun, for children, do we have enough materials in this climb for children to read for fun? Because I know that growing up, there were some books. I was privileged to have some books. There were comic books. There were other story books that it wasn't really an educational material, but they educated while reading it. And during holidays or when you're done with school, done with your homework and everything, you could read that. Do we still have that? Do we have that in libraries? Will children have that access, even when they are asked to read and they want to read their way, which is for fun, what they would like when they're watching movies? The publishing, do we still have publishers writing fun books, publishing fun books for children to access?
Regrettably, in our environment, I'm thinking strongly that we have lost value. Each time I move around Lagos, I used to have access to libraries as an undergraduate on holiday reading in libraries, but some of those libraries that I used to visit, there's one just close by us here. I see something, a diagnostic center on the Central Library. I can't put my mind around it. There's another one that used to be in GRA Ikeja. I was in that environment for an event, trying to peep into the library of my youthful days. I didn't see that library, so it's dangerous. But in other environment, because this is a world, over 100 countries is celebrating this today. But then, if we highlight the challenge in Nigeria, it's a major problem. So therefore, apart from some of the private schools, and for those who are upper middle class, that still have some money to invest, when you go to the public environment, and what you see is regrettably worrisome in terms of cognitive development. And the focus today is on early childhood, which is critical. So once the foundations are properly laid in terms of reading culture, in terms of writing, and in terms of verbal literacy, I think we are not there yet.
All right, on that, you for homes that can afford to buy the books, it seems like if it's not something that has to do with your school book or your school work that you're reading, some parents want to discourage that. They see you reading maybe a novel, for instance, or other books. How can parents balance this and encourage children? First, it has to be fun before they can even enjoy reading their textbooks.
A very literate parent, in my view, will try to strike a balance. I'm not sure that an illiterate parent will discourage people beyond the schoolwork, because that's additional flair for reading will equally improve on the mental capacity of the child to be able to absorb some of the core works that she gets, or she or he gets from the school environment. So, but the challenge there is that if you look at a greater percentage of other people within our climb, that might be difficult. Homework, every other thing. It becomes very monotonous, even for the child to learn.
All right, let's look at reading culture, especially in Africa. There are those who argue that it has been on the decline. I don't know which side you will be, whether to argue for it or against it, and what will be your perception. But let's look at factors that led to this. How did we get to this level where reading culture is on the decline, if you agree?
I think technology is one element, and I've argued elsewhere. People tell you that the opportunity for e-books, and to what extent do people really find time to read a book of about 100 and something page, 200, 300, 400. I don't even want to go to 600 and above. So the challenge here is that technology,
e-books,
has found a way, can I call it an excuse, that you just type a particular concept on the internet, you have to pop up, then you say you're reading based on a short timeline, just to pick a bit of information that are generated by some other people. And there's even a criticism recently from one of the scholars in artificial intelligence at the University of Oxford, saying that what the AI that we celebrate and machine tools as an enabler to learning is actually a kind of aggregation of other people's intellectual property. You do it in such a way that somebody will not accuse you for plagiarism. The point I'm trying to make is that technology, in some instance, has enabled learning, but then the learning to some extent is limited because it's just based on, I want an information, what book day, you put it there. It gives you some element, but then that's just basic. What is the evolution? What are the objectives? What are the philosophy? What led to this? What is the level of literacy? So there's a limitation, particularly in this environment. It's not as bad. And in my personal level, I used to encourage people to invest in books and personal development because it's key to your career growth, even to your social engineering engagement, where you're able to search. What is education? Your ability to search for information and distill from that information to make an informed decision. So for a day like this, I think we should encourage Nigerians in particular to invest in reading. Focus should be placed for early beginners, that's early childhood education, to highlight reading. And those choices, even when you guide them to a very large extent so that they don't take literatures that are offensive in terms of their mental development, but then let them make choices and support those through audiovisual learning and let them do physical reading, and then we can improve on that.
We've talked about the challenges to a good reading culture in this climate. Let's look at in the West. US, for example, there's also a decline in the reading habits of children. What could be responsible for that? They have access to lots of books. They have access to education. What could be the distraction or the reasons children are not taking to reading as much as they used to? China, on the other hand, is recording an increase in children taking to reading, but the opposite is the case in US.
I think I just highlighted some part of it. Is essentially technology. People have become very lazy because machine tools has enabled people to get some limited, even though they say the web is so enabled with a lot of information, but sometimes that is not the case. Even the people that are enabling technology, if you go to an average university abroad, and I can make a case for the University of Oxford, the social science library, if I'm very correct, of the Oxford University, if you put the collections of some of our libraries here, just one library of a particular faculty might be greater in terms of collection than that. So technology is good, but then it has become a disincentive in terms of actually trying to read physical hard copies of books. Even the claim globally is that people are moving into e-reading culture, but there are some researchers that even when you say you're doing e-reading, the amount of time you spend on like reading a hard copy has reduced largely. And sorry to say that in the last 50 years, I've had the opportunity of engaging in terms of employing people to organization. You can see that people that have a degree can't even fix a 200 words essay. And I wonder what kind of certificates are issued. And these are foundational elements that we must encourage, because if you're able to read at that level, at least to write an essay on your best friend, your best food, will not be difficult. But you see people that have spent 4, 5, 6 years, sometimes several years in the university, are not able to put a thought process in place and to write something, because if you want to write independently, you just click on the www and something comes, and you can just do copycatting, and at the end of the day, you have. So it's general, but we need to focus on books. There's no amount of artificial intelligence that can take the human mind away. Then we must involve a reading culture, particularly for early beginners.
Looking at the way e-books are being embraced globally, are you worried we might likely have a time whereby hard copies might not be in vogue, or we might likely have a situation where we have a balance or a switch in between e-copies and hard copies?
The challenge is that there should be a balance between hard copy and e-copies. But as I think, in spite of technological advancement, the two elements, particularly from those who are in scholarship in the academia, where you have an e-substitute, the hard copy is there. So is a balance. Maybe some of us who were trained in the longhand, I still have a very large preference for reading books, because I like to highlight major points of the book, but there's some distraction when you do the e-reading, what I call weapon of mass distraction. You have some sites, the WhatsApps, where people just take information. They don't even look at those information. You put it, and you're putting those in out there. I've had a challenge. 1 year, I sent a message to somebody wishing the person Christmas. And the same message I sent to the person was forwarding my own message to me. So there's no creativity to a very large extent. So there'll be a balance between e-copy and hard copy. But the challenge is that, to what extent do people really use the e-copy for personal development and for serious reading? I think that's the challenge.
All right, let's not talk about reading for fun. For those early beginners in school, primary and maybe early secondary levels. Now, the way the school system is structured, for day students, you move from one class to the other or from one lesson to the other, and then the close of the day school, maybe they stay for extra lessons. By the time they're going home with lots of assignments that they barely have time to even complete before reading. When they're on holidays again, they are sent back to summer lessons and all. So there isn't much time in between for them to have that time for fun to read, unlike the boarders that stay in the school the entire day until maybe when they have breaks or they're on holidays before they go home, their prep period where they can pick up such books. Do you think this is part of the reasons or the discouragement to reading for fun, the school structure?
Yeah, there's a challenge with the school structure. I agree with you, absolutely. But school administrators who are educators know the implication where there's too much workload, particularly for early child education. So beyond loading children with basic assignments, some of those assignments should include reading, which is part of their developmental processes. So I don't share this idea that children should be overloaded with assignment. The assignment should include, in my view, reading for pleasure. Some of the structure that are put in place should take cognizance of reading for pleasure. So this excessive workload is not desirable for child psychology and child development. I've been a part of a PTA where I've raised some issues that why it's good that children should get assignment, but the workload, they are depressing and their learning capacity is reduced, and that's why, particularly from adolescent age, some try to pull back in terms of, so learning in general must be done with pleasure, giving room even where you can have illustrations to push some of those agenda rather than this hard learning way, which can serve as this disincentive to children.
Let's look at the challenge that may likely occur with artificial intelligence. We're in the age of AI. It's the era now. AI is invading everything, if I may put it that way. Do you think we might likely have a situation whereby artificial intelligence will replace human intelligence, which will also affect a reading culture?
I strongly doubt, in my personal opinion, because the artificial intelligence or the machine tools that we have come to celebrate in the 21st century has its own limitation. And everything that is replicated as artificial intelligence has to do with the human mind. So whatever artificial intelligence that you create, first and foremost, is an element of the human spirit that is translated into a machine. So as long as the human capacity is there, I think artificial intelligence will not take the place of the human memory. This box here contains so much things, and every development that has come with civilization is the human spirit that we're endowed with God. So I see machine tools, artificial intelligence, just as an enabler. But there are new research and new criticism that those apps that try to generate some level of knowledge are actually invading into the human space, who are the original creator of this intelligence. And people find a way to manipulate those so that the concept of plagiarism or stealing somebody's intellectual property is not seen. I'm sure that we get a point that new regulations will come into play in that regard. But I doubt sincerely that machine tools or artificial intelligence can take the human spirit away.
Aside giving gifts to children as incentive to encourage them towards reading, what about the materials that they read themselves? What can be done to enhance those materials and even the publishers of those materials? Some of these children are already used to watching cartoons a lot of time, watching pictures, find pictures, and some of them have phones or use their parents have gotten them devices, so they surf the internet as well. So seems like there's already competition between that and the books. What can be done to enhance the materials, which are the books, and the publishers of these materials to put in more effort, turn out more materials for reading?
For those involved in educational planning and administration, the first point is that they must make a percentage in terms of how the curriculum is drawn. Emphasis should be placed on hard copy reading, why those illustrations based on audio, visual aid to learning. So there should be a balance. So particularly at school level, those who work with children at the foundational level must find a balance to let them read the physical literature, while they aid that learning through some audio or some visual elements. So that can help to increase the level of reading. On the other hand, parents at home must equally strike a balance on the percentage of time allocated to hard copy reading, to audio, and to visual elements. So if you're able to strike that element, let the children know that there's a need to do reading. And at the same time, you can get something from audio at another. Then the mechanism in terms of publication, when you write books for children, the illustration should be more apt so that it will elicit their interest. So you can put some of the learning mechanisms in cartoons. Then people should equally lead children in terms of reading. So as parents, if you have words around you, try and bring them into a reading table once in a while where you read. And the storytelling mechanism will help their cognitive development.
You're right, the conversation is getting interesting, but we just need to go on a break now. We'll be right back shortly to make the conversation bigger. Stay with us.
In the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress, welcome to Souq News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souq News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souq News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souq News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souq News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Dr. Rafiu Oladipo.
My name is Baba Jalal Repega.
I'm Reverend Juliet Benite.
I'm Godio Didi.
My name is Professor Oladokun Sulaiman Olarawaju.
Souq News is on the ground, loading.
Very enlightening, very educative, and entertaining.
Thank you to Souq News. So I'm happy that Souq TV has come into existence.
I'm happy to be here in the Souq News.
I want to encourage you to subscribe to the channel and keep watching news that makes sense.
As Browning said, one's extension of one's reach should not exceed one's grasp, or what is heaven for, and I think Souq News is doing that.
Africa needs a voice of truth, and Souq News has become one of them. And get ready, get ready, get ready.
And keep watching.
Keep watching Souq News.
Keep watching Souq News. It's a place to be.
Keep watching Souq News.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This early exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the early exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, if you just joined us, this is Early Exchange, and we're looking at the World Book Day 2024 with the theme Read Your Way. Now, the goal is to encourage early beginners, children, if you like, to develop the reading culture. And we'll still have Sam Oroje, who is Director, Center for Public Policy, in the studio with us. He's been talking a lot about the reasons for the decline in some areas of reading culture for children, and why some areas experienced an increase in the development of reading culture for children. All right, looking further into this, before we went to the break, we're talking about what will encourage the publishers to read. Now, there are, as you have libraries, can there be centers for reading where children who perhaps not have libraries in their area and maybe shown what to read? If you leave it to the child to just pick what they read, how many children will have that good sense to just say, okay, this is what I want to read and this is what I want to consume? They may walk into the library and not define that textbook, and just say, there's nothing here fun to read.
All right, I think
like a book club,
yeah,
sort of.
There are some schools that have book clubs, but beyond that, the government must bring back the library culture into the system. It's very sad that you don't even have state, local government, and national libraries anymore. I don't know how we got to this level. So within those library settings, you should have children corner where specific literature that will appeal to children are stuck in there, and the design mechanism, the ambience of that environment must be designed to attract children to have interest. Then at school level, book clubs, reading in terms of incentive. As I speak, there's one NGO that is doing a street walk as we speak now from Falomore to CMS to highlight the importance of the day, and they have some prize money that they will give to some children in terms of their interest and some schools. So at the government level, at the civil society level, we must find a way to encourage going to schools, create a space, a reading space for those who are illustrators, those who are publishers should find a way to make some of these literatures very appealing so that children can sustain a reading culture.
All right, now let's talk about further, talk about the solutions now. Let's look at the role of parents. It is often said that charity begins at home. That is, if charity is still at the home front anyway. But let's look at what should be the role of parents in encouraging reading, taking a reference from your own example, which you told us behind the scene.
Yes, what is important is that as parents, Number one, you must encourage buying books, first and foremost, for your children. You can encourage them by buying books for them on their birthdays, even when you are going to give them some elements of other things that are of interest to them. Maybe you take them out to a food store, an outlet, as they call them in our environment. Then two, you must equally find a way to create a time. Parents are particularly busy, particularly in the cities, commuting between home and the work center. So most time they don't have time. So you might spare some hour, maybe as small as 30 minutes, maybe on a weekend, on a Saturday. Just the same way some people have a family devotion center, then you can equally create a reading center once in a while where you pick a particular set of book that are of interest to the children, and then you begin to pilot that reading culture. On the other hand, each time you go to a big store, you're doing some grocery, pop into a book environment, encourage the children to pick a literature. I think that will improve at the parental level. Then this value that we already have here in Nigeria, where that even those that are properly schooled, to what level of financial wealth they have, I think we should discard that. We need a mental development. I'm not saying that there's no place for financial literacy or financial gain, but then we must balance reading as we try to make money so that we can have a decent and a better society. A society that is properly educated is a society that will sustain a future that is better for the generation yet unborn.
So what about children who have learning difficulties or challenges, children that find it hard to read? What kind of supports can be given to them? You know, some of them are even in regular schools. It's sometimes hard to identify which of them has such difficulty. They may just assume that they're dull or slow learners.
No, I think there's a framework in place, special need education, as they call it. And inspectors of education, I don't know how they do their work these days, but when I was in the college, I used to see inspectors who just sneak into the classroom and sit somewhere looking at the observation of the teacher. So what is important here is special needs. Schools must be created where the percentage are not really much in some places. Special need teachers must be in those schools that can cater for the basic requirements of this physically challenged or physically endowed, as some people might call them, in a way that you can encourage learning so that they don't become a burden to their parents and society at large. So we must find that balance, and the policy framework already take care of special need education. But more often than not, because of the craze for money, particularly in private school, people don't pay attention to those children, and they just label them, which is a dangerous thing. So administrators, particularly from the ministries, must focus on to what extent do schools imbibe and practice special education needs for those who are physically endowed.
Let's look at the plight of publishers or authors now. Some of these publishers, if not some, most are struggling in business, and because of the cost of doing businesses and then the cost of operation, cost of getting these materials. What should be done to encourage publishers or for them to stay in business? What kind of incentive can be provided for them? Because these materials are central to reading, and if they are not there, then reading wouldn't exist in the first place.
I think the government needs to find a way to provide tax holidays for those who bring in materials for publishing. Then we must find a way to provide incentive even for those who sell books, because of the cost of printing books has really gone so high. So if we find a way to absorb some of the costs that publishers feels that we go a long way to encourage reading. I do know that for those in the newspaper industry, this administration met with newspaper proprietors recently, and there's a provision of how newsprint can be subsidized to a level where people can still purchase those books. But on the other hand, the challenge publishers are facing is that, which we spoke to earlier, people don't even patronize the bookstores any longer. So even authors are having challenges in trying to recoup some investment on their intellectual property. So until you address those issues, then the issue of reading, which today speaks to, might become very difficult to address.
All right, so as we wrap up, what kind of content would you suggest to publishers, to authors to begin to create for children to read?
Those who are into children publication, fictions that children can relate with, the genres that children can relate with should be encouraged. Then once the publisher must take cognizance that for early beginners or early childhood education, pictorial representation is a major element when you write for children. So you simplify whatever message you're trying to pass across to children with a lot of graphical representation. You don't overload them with so much work, so that can energize their interest to continue to read.
Let me wrap it up with what I started with, that the best way to hide information from a black man is to put it in a book. Don't you think now, if this information is hidden in phones, in form of e-copies, it will encourage the black man to read?
I don't subscribe to that word when you use the black man. I see that as a colonial legacy of always painting. It's not only in Africa that you have challenge, even in India, you have challenge with reading. So even in some countries in the Oceania, you have issues with reading culture. So I don't think is a proper phrase to describe the black race, in my view. But what is important is that we need to continually highlight the importance of reading in spite of the craze for artificial intelligence. So even the phone that we have, which is supposed to be a tool for personal development, I see more often than not, sadly, that people spend a greater part of their time on the phone that has plenty of resource for development, and they find time more on things that distract them, particularly WhatsApp, where people overload you with some unwholesome information that are not desirable. People are just pulling out information. So you can do yourself some good by migrating away some of these social applications that don't really add value to personal development. And you can focus on developing yourself through reading, maybe e-books, e-literature, whatever is of your interest with your phone. That, again, would help. But for me, a day like this is to highlight the importance of engaging, particularly in physical reading of hard copies.
All right, Sam Horuwije, we must thank you for your intervention. No doubt you're the right man for this moment. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
I know you're still here, so we're not leaving you yet. All right, let's go on a short break. We'll be right back to continue our conversation looking at the global energy crisis and the latest development in that regard. It's your program, so don't go anywhere. Stay with us.
Lateef Jakande. Born Lateef Kayode Jakande in the Ekpetedo area of Lagos Island, Lagos State on July 1929. He studied at the Lagos Public School at Enowa, Lagos Island, then at Bonham Memorial Methodist School, Port Harcourt, King's College, enrolled at Ilesha Grammar School, where he edited a literary paper called The Quarterly Mirror. Jakande began a career in journalism in 1949 with a daily service and joined the Nigerian Tribune in 1953. The owner, Chief Obafemi Awolowo, appointed Jakande editor-in-chief of the Tribune in 1956. Jakande established John West Publications in 1975 after leaving Tribune and began to publish the Lagos News. He served as the first president of the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria, NPAN. Jakande ran for election as executive governor of Lagos State in 1979 on the Unity Party of Nigeria platform. His administration was effective and open and implemented the cardinal policies of his party. He introduced housing and educational programs targeting the poor, building new neighborhood primary and secondary schools, and providing free primary and secondary education. He gave poor people's children education, and many of them are now very prominent in the society today. Jakande established the Lagos State University and constructed over 30,000 housing units. After the military takeover in 1983, Jakande was charged, prosecuted, and convicted of treason and later pardoned. He served as Minister of Works under the Sani Abacha military regime. He died in Lagos on February 11, 2021. Lateef Jakande was the first civilian governor of Lagos State. Lateef Kayode Jakande, Souq Enlightenment, the heart of sub-Saharan Africa, where commerce meets progress. Welcome to Souq News, your source for business, economy, and development insight that drive nations forward. From the vibrant streets of Lagos, Africa's fastest economic hub, Souq News takes you on a journey of discovery, analyzing and reporting the facts that lay the foundation for growth and development. We don't just report the news, we create it. Souq News is more than a channel. It is a catalyst for change, spotlighting the stories that shape economies, inspire entrepreneurs, and fuel progress. Covering business, finance, technology, energy, and many more, Souq News provides a daily deep dive into the stories that matter, interviews with industry titans, and analysis that empowers your understanding of economic landscape. Join us daily as we dissect, discuss, and deliver the most relevant and factual news on business and the economy. Souq News is your trusted guide, empowering you with the knowledge to make informed decisions.
My name is Veronica Nkechi Eze.
Charles Abana. My name is Professor Martins Emeje.
Professor Sylvester Odion Akaine.
Keep watching Souq
News TV.
The best news channel online.
It's elevating, it's enlightening, it's educating.
Muhammad Ali found his root in Africa. Rumble in the jungle. I swear the king is humble. Jesse Jackson, O.J. Simpson, this is black history. Andrew Young visit Africa in the late 60s. Legend, Bob Marley make the life different. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are big names. They fought for black Americans in the old days. We need same revolution in our own ways. Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Mr. Jay-Z, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre and Eddie Murphy. American prosperity ain't complete with African poverty. It's legendary Idris Abdul Karim, and you are on to Souq News. You don't touch that dial.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For social security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
All right, we're still in the business of shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Now let's get to the global scene where we're talking about energy crisis. It has been of concern, you know, the hike in energy bills have been of concern to a lot of people all over the world. What are the factors responsible for this? We still have Sam Oruji here with us, and he's going to provide his perspective in this regard. Sam, glad to know you're still here with us.
Thank you.
Great. So globally, we're looking at the energy sector. There are a lot of issues, concerns being raised on the part of the suppliers, even for the consumers as well. Give us a background to these, you know, factors responsible for this global crisis. You have the Ukraine war on the other hand, and then certain other factors. But give us a background to what is playing out globally as regards the crisis in the energy sector.
I think the crisis in the energy sector is an issue on climate change, the need to transition from fossil fuel to renewable energy is a major challenge. The investment that you need to transit to renewable energy need a lot of massive investment. So in trying to move away from the traditional means of energy into renewable energy has been a major crisis in terms of where do you get the financing to improve on renewable energy. There's a challenge between those who generate electricity, the retailers. In some places, when you are even able to generate, what amount of power are you able to put into the distribution network that will impact on industry and household consumption? But in spite of those challenges, there are places where people are reviewing energy consumption because if energy is out of the consuming public, particularly in area where there's over-reliance on energy to heat up environment, particularly in winter, where it's so cold, and you're not able to get energy, then it's become a major challenge. So in spite of those challenges, governments and operators within that industry are trying to see how they can balance the book on how to provide energy. The cost of energy is expensive, but then is the responsibility that the government must find a way to get long-term financing so that you're able to sustain that industry, particularly for household consumption and manufacturing.
All right, but some areas or some parts of the world are having it good for them when it comes to energy cost. There's been a reduction in the cost of electricity bills as some energy suppliers have announced price decrease following a fall in wholesale market cost. Now, what is going on in the energy market that perhaps is resulting to a fall in wholesale costs of energy, particularly for countries in Europe?
Okay, particularly in the UK, I think there's a news item that says that there's a slump in energy costs. But I think if you look at it, is the wholesale, the cost at which the generating company give light to retailer is always reviewed maybe every quarter. And the review shows that the cost at which wholesalers get the electricity to the retailer has reduced to some extent, which will not translate into some good incentive to the final consumer. But then, in Europe in particular, you have various categories of consumption. So if you see the news item, just that there's a slash, but then there are different metering regime. Those who have prepayment regime, you have a direct payment system, and you have certain that are domicile with charity and some other kind of category. So good that they are making some savings at which the cost of power is given to distributors, which will now impact positively. But regrettably, on our own side, the cost of electricity is going up, and you don't even have sufficient megawatt to drive the process. So, but I think what they do in Europe, there's a big investment, long-term investment that is supported by the government so that they can build more power stations. And once there's more power station, then the competition become easy to manage, and the final consumer does not really suffer for the cost of production for power.
Now, let's make reference to what is playing out in Northern Ireland, where the Power Authority has decided to slash the price of energy by 6.3%. And according to a statement released in this regard, this will take effect April 1st, and it means customers will save an extra £64 per year on the average. Unlike what is happening in other climes, Northern Ireland seems to be making progress, creating respite for the consumers of this product. 6.3% decrease in the cost of electricity.
Ireland and the UK is the same. I think is a periodic review that is statutory. So every quarter, they review the way wholesalers, that's the GENCO, as we call them here, take to the distribution company. So once those reviews are done, based on the financial projection of this company and the regulatory framework, give a room where there are possibility that you can make some savings, then you find a way to review that wholesale market into the retail outlet, then people make savings. So it's just periodic. So it will take effect even in the UK, Ireland, even within the UK, Scotland and some other places had the same framework where they will make some savings based on their review of those who generate power. So like the Electricity Regulatory Commission in Nigeria, those are the kind of regulatory framework that goes to look at what amount of power that is generated, what is the cost of generation, what savings do we make in this quarter, so that we can find a way to reduce the impact on consumers. So this is across board, not just Ireland. Maybe the percentage in terms of the metering that you use vary from one person. So, but on the average, that significantly will bring some savings. But on the other hand, the cost of living has equally gone high. So as you are making some savings in terms of energy consumption, then your pocket has some problem when you want to consume some of that. But by and large, that's a good development where things really work.
All right, so energy prices reduced at the wholesale electricity markets in spring of 2023. That's sometime around August in 2023. Till now, this still being the effect of the reduction in the wholesale electricity markets. Looking at the global factors now, because we understand that there's a global energy crisis, is it that the UK is exempt from the effects of this? How are they able to have low wholesale electricity costs?
I think a massive investment in the energy sector, particularly government long-term financing for renewable energy in particular. So the UK have a framework where they put so much investment into energy production. So when you make a massive investment in terms of what you can generate, so when you have some level of power, then if you look at it from the point of view of economics of scale, cost of production of those energy, then the pricing over a time gets reduced.
Let's talk about electricity subsidy, subsidizing for electricity or power supply. Globally, it's a practice. In other climes, they seem to be getting it better. But let's look at Africa. There are certain challenges when it comes to subsidy. If I want to hear the word subsidy, somehow irritates you because of the issue of lack of transparency and all that. Before we get to Nigeria, which also the issue of subsidy, electricity subsidy is a concern. But let's look at globally, the practice, the norm, and then extension Africa. What is missing when it comes to the issue of subsidizing for energy or electricity?
I think the primary responsibility of government is to provide security and welfare. So on the basis of that, government globally find a way of providing social services to their citizens. But here, where countries elsewhere have subsidies for certain basic items that touch on every citizen, the way we manage our subsidy regime in Africa is provokingly worrisome in that most of those transactions are opaque, they're not transparent. So, but there's nothing wrong absolutely with subsidy, but the implementation of the subsidy regime or policy in Africa leave much to be desired. So going forward is that if you must subsidize certain social service, let it be transparent, have independent auditors, have civil society groups that help to monitor some of those things so that the actual subsidy gets to the people that is meant to serve. So the challenge here, put simply, is that of corruption. That's the problem. So corruption is like second nature in African public service transactions. So we need to rework, rethink the way we do government business. I'm not one of those who say government does not have business in business. Government has business in business. So what is important is that government should be transparent, should be more accountable to the citizens, so that where a subsidy regime is applied, we should see that subsidy regime impacting on the citizen, not rather people having those budgetary provisions that goes into private pockets.
All right, so the UK is building a wind farm that is costing $1.4 billion that will power at least 1 million homes. When that happens, would that translate into a more reduction in electricity bills? And if they're doing that, what can be done in this part of the world, Africa, where stable electricity is still a challenge for some countries?
Like I mentioned earlier, the UK has a policy framework where they provide a long-term financing for major energy production. So they have invested about £1.5 billion in developing a new wind farm, which will impact on a greater number of households. So therefore, if that kind of investment is recouped in the next 2 years, which the project will come into its final stage, then the competition have no option than find a way to tinker with tariffs. So I hope in the long run, with that kind of massive investment, there will be reduction in electricity consumption tariff, which again is the major primary responsibility of government to provide social services for their citizens.
Looking at what UK is doing with wind farms and How can Africa replicate this kind of example? And not just on a smaller scale, but on the commercialized level, generating power from wind, which also could also be another way of reducing the over-reliance on the conventional methods.
There's a global call for renewable energy. This call, particularly to reduce its impact on climate change, government now has responsibility, even where they cannot finance some of these renewable energy options. What they need to do is to arrange for a PPP arrangement, public-private sector initiative that can address. But fortunately for us, we're endowed with so much sunlight. We have the ocean within us here and some other element that can generate alternative energy. So what we need, just like they are doing elsewhere, is to improve on the investment options that are available to develop this other sector so that we can put this alternative energy source into the national grid or sub-national grids so that we can have more power to enable industry to produce, to enable households to enjoy some electricity that will improve on the quality of life of Nigerians.
In diversifying the electricity grid in Nigeria, for instance, what would need to be done? Would it require full private involvement, or the government still needs to play a role in it?
Just about, okay, today is Thursday. By tomorrow, I think we'll be celebrating, if my knowledge serves me right, a private sector initiative in terms of power generation, in terms of power distribution. Geometrics has provided an uncommon entrepreneurial ingenuity in Nigeria by providing a 24/7 power generation within the city of Aba and the contiguous local government area. So it's a doable here. So we need to encourage more investment, private sector investment. We should develop the alternative means of providing power. So government can guarantee some of this initiative so that those who have money, they can put money down. And I'm happy that that system has been further deregulated. It's moved away from the exclusive list to the concurrent list. So that means state government and other individuals within the local area, even community, can now invest in power generation and possibly distribution, and they can feed that into sub-national grid, and that will help the level of energy generation and distribution in Nigeria. So geometrics has shown us the way, and let's see how other investors can look at other business corridor that they can serve to provide power.
All right, we'll see how the other business investors can come into it to continue the conversation after this break. Stay tuned.
Idumota Market. Eko Idumota, once a residential neighborhood, is home to Idumota Market located on Lagos Island. It is one of the oldest and arguably one of the largest markets in West Africa. Idumota is a historic neighborhood adjacent to the Lagos port that facilitated the slave trade and later, under the British indirect rule, it surrounded to exports that fueled the colonial enterprise. Idumota was also the location of an armed forces remembrance cenotaph called Soja Idumota, built as a monument to Nigerian soldiers who served with the West African Frontier Force. An Eyo Masquerade statue and a clock tower are also some monuments at Idumota. Idumota Market is so popular that large sales are recorded as early as 7 a.m. The market is made up of hundreds of locked-up shops occupying several multi-story buildings, with some measuring about 5 or more floors. In 2010, the Lagos State government demolished some illegal structures in order to improve vehicular and human movement in and around the markets. During weekdays, the neighborhood of Idumota is densely populated by shoppers, traders, and bus passengers. From the Carter Bridge, ascending into Lagos Island, passengers can see the neighborhood before disembarking at their final destination. Idumota Market accommodates the substantial inflow of imported goods. The bulk of import from abroad are routed first through Idumota and then on to other markets through Nigeria and other West and Central African countries. The energy of private Idumota traders and wholesalers facilitate this activity, where millions of US dollars worth of wholesale is exchanged daily. Idumota Markets, Souq Enlightenment.
There's been a lot of fundraise, especially in the tech environment in Nigeria, and there's every need to be cautious, not to think that the fundraise itself is the end point. It's a means to an end. If the job is 100%, the fundraise is just 20. There's still 80% to go. So what you certainly do not do is to raise funds and shortly thereafter go onto social media and brag about the brand new car you bought or the apartment you've moved into in Banana Island. It doesn't make for good optics. And unfortunately, when you really need the benefit of doubt, you might not get it from your investors. You don't raise money and then ask, so what should I do with the money? At that time, it's too late, you've lost the plot. When you raise money, you would have raised it based on the back of an agreement with your investor, clearly outlining how the money will be spent and how the returns will come. It's imperative to stick to that plan. And if anything changes in the environment or in the business and you have to pivot or there's going to be a significant change, it's imperative to then get the buy-in of the investor. The investors are not philanthropists. This is what we need to understand. They are not giving grants. The investors are astute businessmen who are not necessarily content with the normal rate of returns of placing money in the bank or buying bonds. And that's why they take the risk of putting their funds in a risky venture, such as a startup, which has no track record. What we have to bear in mind is that when the investor gives you any amount of money to invest in the business, come rain or shine, he will typically ask you for 3 times of that in 5 years. So let's do the math. Let's say that I took $1 million as a raise from an investor in, say, 2015, when the dollar was 200 naira per dollar. 5 years on, in 2020, I will be expected to return to that investor $3 million. $3 million in 2020 at 440 per dollar is about 1.32 billion naira. Now, if you keep the money for longer, then it's even getting more tricky because the exchange rate is falling and you have to do more to pay back. Let's put that figure aside. Bear it in mind, 1.32 billion. If I had approached the bank in 2015 to borrow the same amount of $1 million, at that time it was 200 million naira. So I borrowed 200 million naira. Interest rate is 20%. In 5 years, that's another 200 naira. So what I'll return to the bank will be 200 naira interest plus 200 million naira that I borrowed. I'll be returning 400 million naira. And then compare this in the same period with someone who raised money and has to return 1.32 billion naira. This gives you a sense when I say that raising the money is just the tip of the iceberg. If your business has not reached an inflection point, if your business has not proved this concept, then venture capital money may not necessarily be for you. unless there is a match, which means you are earning in the currency that you borrowed in. So you borrowed in dollars and then you are earning in dollars. Or you have what we call a forward contract with a bank to hedge against exchange loss, if it is available. But if not, then you take VC money when you have captured the cost of building the business such that any additional customer is a contribution margin. In that case, it makes sense to scale very quickly because every customer is adding to the bottom line. That is when it makes sense to take the VC money, because then they are sharing in the profit and they are helping you to grow the business quickly to deliver that profit. Bear in mind, raising money is not an end in itself. It's a means to an end. Pursue that end.
The challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people.
Russia, China are gaining entry into Africa, and it would appear that some Western countries are losing out.
You're working as an expatriate worker, then you're paid in your currency. But then if you must spend those money, you need to convert those money to the local currency to spend.
For Social Security to work, we need to know exactly how many we are. We don't have a precise number. We need to know exact location of people.
When we address this exchange rate volatility, we will see definitely cost of goods and services will come down.
From a security point of view, we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track individuals and goods within the continent.
This is Early Exchange with Femi Ayodele.
You know, the Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development. With our conversation today, we're set to give you the best of programming.
And Blessing Aiche.
We do hope that you enjoy every time you spend with us here today. The world needs peace. The world needs to come to a round table and find solutions to the pockets of troubles.
Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, indeed, it's still your favorite program, and we're still looking at the latest development as regards global crisis when it comes to energy sector. And now we want to look at the Nigeria and go to this development, and we still have Sam here with us.
Thank you.
Great. So let's look at what is playing out in Nigeria. The federal government says it can't sustain subsidizing for electricity. There's an existing debt of about 1.3 trillion naira, and looking at how this is going to play out in a few months, is this sustainable? And now that an average consumer in Nigeria is dealing with hiking energy cost, do you think it's ill-timed if the federal government is considering removing subsidy on electricity?
I have a very, very strong view on this matter. When you talk about the debt profile in that sector, I think the government should be responsible. Pay up your indebtedness first and foremost to this country. If they are able to pay their debts, I think the GENCOs and the distribution companies will be able to sustain themselves, in my view. There's so much exposure from the government in terms of their inability to pay up their debts that they've been piling up over the years. So an industry cannot operate optimally where the consumers of that product don't pay for what they consume. So to what extent can those business owners stay afloat in the business? So we must be responsible as a government. So the starting point for me is that the government should first and foremost pay their standing debt profile. Whether state, local government, pay your debts to these companies that provide this electricity, then we cannot be talking about other issues. But then, in terms of the application and the advisory from the IMF on the need to remove subsidies from electricity, I think the timing, in my view, is wrong. The people are yet to come off the removal of fuel subsidy, and the cost of living is biting very hard, and then you want to remove another subsidy. I think the government is looking for trouble if they don't put their house in order, because the advisories are necessary, but then you can tell IMF sometimes the implication of some of this policy, because they tell us that that will lead to economic growth, development, and all that. When the people are growing under a high cost of living, to what extent can you improve on growth and development? So, good policy prescription from the IMF, but the government has to take it easy and tread carefully in that matter. But my submission is that they should first and foremost pay their indebtedness to these companies. And if those monies are made available, even if they are going to borrow those money, let them borrow and pay up those money. And I can tell you, I don't work, I'm not speaking for those companies. But the kind of statistics that I see and read is that if those monies are paid by various governments, these companies can, even if they are not making profit, at least they can break even.
But don't you think the argument on the part of government is also valid if the fact that it's not sustainable? If you are spending trillions to subsidize for electricity and we're still borrowing on the other side, how do you juxtapose this?
No, the point I'm making is that yes, the government is spending a certain amount of money to subsidize electricity. So that amount that you are subsidizing electricity with, first and foremost, the indebtedness of your cumulative bills that you are owing that sector, that you have not paid, you don't think about that. Pay up those debts, then you see how that can free up those companies in terms of their operation. Then we cannot come to a round table and talk about the removal of those subsidies. Are those subsidies really actual subsidies paid, or subsidies that have been filtered away by public servants who often put their hand in the cookie jar? So these are issues that we must look at dispassionately, but then the government must be responsible. Where are these leakages? Has this subsidy been paid actually? So these are the issues and conversation, but my view is that they should pay up their. You can't be in debt and you are threatening people that you are going to remove subsidy. Pay those companies. Federal government alone is owing billions. State government, pay up your debt. You should go and source for money to pay those, then we cannot come to talk about subsidy.
All right, so on the other hand, let's look at the quality of service. Service commensurate to what the consumers pay for. Now, the federal government is also threatening to revoke the licenses of some discos because, according to the Minister of Power, Dibayeri Adelabu, they claim that the Minister of Power claims that by their investigation, they've discovered that some discos intentionally refuse to supply power adequately according to the supply that they receive from the transmission companies to their franchise areas. What's your take on this?
No, what is important is that if you have a regulatory framework in place, why don't you implement it? So if the DISCO don't have the operating capacity to provide electricity because you as a government, first and foremost, you are owing those entity, you are not able to pay your entity, then you come into the public space and be talking about people unable to provide light for the franchise. Those franchisees that you give license to operate, to what extent does the environment help those business to operate? So it's critical. So it's not this blame game scenario. People should come clean. Government, the operators should come over a round table. What are the issues? For me, I know that the exposure of government to some of these companies is so huge. So first and foremost, if they say they are not providing electricity to some of the franchise that the franchisees sign on to, then
they're not providing as much as the TCN is supplying to them, to those areas that they control or
yeah, the point is that if, for example, you are generating 100 naira from those businesses and 70% of those money, you don't get them as revenue, how do you operate? And that is the current scenario. So I'm not a spokesperson for but the figure
it will lead to hoarding?
No.
Will it lead to hoarding?
No, it's not hoarding. It's not really hoarding. People can only provide service to the extent that they have revenue to distribute those power to certain places. So if I generate 100 naira and 70 naira of my money is held by some people and I'm not able to get that money, how do I operate in that industry? So we don't just take these statements from those surface bureaucrats. They just make comments in the surface. They don't address the issue. Okay, why are they not, even when they generate that power, are they able to distribute even to the franchise center which they are signed on to? These are the critical questions we must ask. The point I'm making is that yes, they may have, in terms of the provision, do they have the enablement to supply? Because it's easy when you keep on blaming a particular sector against the people to some extent where you have not done your homework. And I'm sure that even that ministry and its agencies will be owing some millions of naira. So the minister should go and pay up his debts to those people and see, when he now does that, he can come to the public and tell us that these people are not able to use the franchise very well.
All right, another issue that was also raised by the minister is the issue of vandalism of some of the infrastructure. What can be done to curb that vandalism of power infrastructure across the country?
Again, that's failure of government. I'm one of those who don't really criticize government. If you say they are vandalizing infrastructure, whose responsibility to secure national assets, national infrastructure? Is the security. So they need to see how that security sector is reformed so that they can adequately cater for the criminality that do occur in that industry. So I think the responsibility lies in the government that is talking about this issue. I don't think it's our responsibility to go and protect grid, power companies and all that. So I think it's the responsibility of government. And government to just go back into their cabinet meeting and see how they can address their security concern.
Let's look at this issue of collapse of the national grid. According to the minister, it has collapsed like 6 times between December and now. That's interesting. How do you react to that? According to the statement, this is as a result of shortage of gas, aging machines in the grid chain, low capacity to evacuate generated power. How do we address this?
When you deregulated that industry at a particular point in time, before doing that, I think it was the responsibility of government to see how the national grid is brought up to speed for new investment to come in there. So if you are using obsolete equipment and you want to generate some megawatt, that obsolete system that was designed maybe for 10 megawatts, and you want to do 20, to what extent can that sustain the new power that is generated? So these are issues. So I don't share that kind of public narrative that tend to situate a problem without looking at the entire throughput of that issue. So yes, they generate power, but constantly the grid breaks down. What do we need to do? So you need to improve on that infrastructure in terms of repair to the grid. Now you already deregulated our sector further. So this mini grid, let the mini grids come into full stream in terms of operation, then the pressure on the national grid will reduce. So let's take, for example, geometrics. The 206 as 2006, let me put it correctly so I don't make any mistake. Census figure put Abia State at about 2 point something million people. And geometric, with the way they have calibrated their operation, is able to provide electricity to Aba and the contiguous cities. Then the pressure on the national grid will reduce minimally. So if we have other players in terms of power generation and distribution, because geometric has this unique design of generating and distributing. So if we have those platforms replicated elsewhere, then the impact on the national grid will reduce. So these mini grids that are coming on stream should be encouraged, so that this idea of the grid collapsing more often than not will reduce.
And it's quite funny to note that generation of 4,000 megawatts is celebrated.
Sadly, sadly indeed.
All right, thank you very much, Sam Aruji, for being our in-house analyst today on the show. It's been a wonderful one. You've been on the show with us from the start to the end. We thank you for your time.
My pleasure, blessing.
That's been the show today. Many thanks for watching. Let's do it again tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. And it's going to be a special one tomorrow as we join the world to commemorate International Women's Day. So what you see tomorrow will not be the usual that you're used to. Wait for tomorrow. I won't let all the cats out of the bag, so that when the day comes, you understand what I'm talking about. But just know it's going to be a special package tomorrow. I'm Blessing AJ. Have yourself a great day.
Today is World Book Day, and from me to you, let's embrace reading. That culture, we need to embrace it, because you're a victim of what you don't know. It is often said that leaders are readers. Don't forget, Heli Extend returns tomorrow, and the conversation continues on our social media platform. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.